So millions of people are finishing their workouts today, right? Like wiping the sweat off their foreheads.
Yeah, and probably immediately jumping straight into an ice bath.
Exactly, to build stronger muscles. But according to the clinical text sitting right in front of us today, well, every single one of them is accidentally sabotaging their own games.
It is easily one of the most pervasive misunderstandings in modern fitness right now.
Right.
I mean, people are treating this highly precise biological tool as if it's just some generic post-workout supplement.
Right, like a protein shake or something.
Exactly. And today's deep dive, it isn't just about, avoiding sore legs. It's really about understanding the complex cellular mechanics of recovery.
Because, we all know the heavy, stiff, just completely drained sensation you feel the morning after a grueling workout.
Dreaded leg day hangover.
Yes. That feeling where just going down a flight of stairs requires, strategic planning. And we usually just accept that as the unavoidable tax we pay for fitness, right? Like, you suffered today to be stronger tomorrow.
But the text shows we can actively manipulate this process.
Exactly. So our mission today is to extract the exact behavioral protocols you can use, like right now at home, to accelerate your recovery.
Without wiping out the hard work you literally just put in?
Right. So setting the tone here, the body is this incredibly adaptive machine, but it needs the exact right environmental inputs.
Yeah, we are going to look at how to engineer a far more resilient physical baseline. And it all comes down to mastering our own vascular system.
Okay, let's unpack this from the ground up. What is actually happening under the hood when we feel that intense soreness?
Well, to understand the soreness, we really have to look at the cellular reality of pushing your physical limits.
Okay.
When you lift heavy weights or, push your cardiovascular threshold, you are systematically creating microscopic damage within your muscle fibers.
Wait, so we're literally tearing the muscle apart, like on a microscopic level. That sounds like a mistake.
I know, it sounds alarming, but this microtrauma is an essential biological trigger. It's actually the primary physical signal your body relies on to force an adaptation.
So it needs to feel the damage to know it has to grow.
Precisely. But the physical tearing isn't the whole story. As you push those limits, your body is rapidly burning adenosine triphosphate, or ATP, for energy.
Which is like the basic energy currency of the cell, right?
Right. And that metabolic engine, it creates a massive exhaust fume of waste products.
Exhaust fumes.
Yeah, we are talking specifically about hydrogen ions and reactive oxygen species just accumulating in the tissue.
Reactive oxygen species, are those essentially just like biological exhaust fumes?
That is a highly accurate way to look at it. They are these highly reactive molecules that, along with the hydrogen ions, they drastically lower the pH of your local muscle tissue.
So it becomes acidic.
Highly acidic. And this acidic environment, combined with the physical microtears we talked about, it creates a localized inflammatory response.
So fluid just rushes into the area.
Exactly. That stiffness, the radiating heat, the heavy feeling you wake up with, that is clinically categorized as DOMS, or delayed onset muscle soreness.
Okay, so here you describe this metabolic waste building up. It makes me picture the circulatory system as this massive, bustling city downtown.
Okay, I like where this is going.
Yeah, so a heavy workout is essentially like a massive, chaotic festival that takes place right in the city center. And once the event is over, the streets are just completely blocked.
Total gridlock.
Right. There's traffic everywhere, debris, metabolic garbage just piling up on the sidewalks. And the sanitation trucks, they're completely stuck in the traffic.
They can't get in to clean it up.
Exactly. They can't get in. So that traffic jam is the inflammation and the physical pain you're feeling in your quads or your shoulders.
That is a fantastic visualization. The metabolic waste is just sitting there, trapped in the local neighborhoods of your muscle tissue, because the regular circulatory flow simply isn't strong enough to push through all that swelling and debris.
But see, this raises a critical question for me.
What's it like?
Well, if this traffic jam of inflammation is actually a natural biological trigger for adaptation, if that's the signal that tells the city to build wider roads and stronger buildings, is soreness always a bad thing? Right?
Wow.
Should we just leave the construction crews alone to do their job?
That is the pivotal question of recovery science. And the answer is you absolutely need the construction crews.
Okay.
The macrophages and cytokines rushing to the area, they are what facilitate the repair and growth. But leaving the metabolic waste, the acidic debris, just sitting there blocking the roads for days, that is biologically inefficient.
Because the workers can't do their jobs if the site is full of trash.
Exactly. The cellular repair cannot happen optimally if the environment is choked with garbage. We need the inflammation to trigger the repair, yes. But we do not need the prolonged gridlock.
Okay, so how do we clear the roads without, firing the construction crew?
Well, this brings us to the main event. Cold water immersion.
The text calls this the ultimate cardiovascular manipulator, right?
It truly is, because when you submerge your body up to the neck in cold water, you trigger an immediate and dramatic response from your autonomic nervous system.
It's like a shock to the system.
Huge shock. Your brain registers the sudden drop in external temperature as a severe threat to your core temperature.
It thinks you're freezing to death.
Right. So in response, it floods your system with norepinephrine.
Which is a hormone.
A neurotransmitter and a hormone, yeah. And it forces your peripheral blood vessels to strictly constrict.
Wait, so why does the body pull the blood away from the limbs? Is it just panicking because of the temperature drop?
Well, it's not panic. It's a highly calculated survival mechanism called vasoconstriction. The body forcefully shunts blood away from your extremities, so your arms, your legs, your peripheral muscle tissues, and it drives it directly toward your core.
To protect the important stuff.
Exactly. It prioritizes keeping the heart, the lungs, and the brain warm over keeping your biceps warm.
But how does that actually help with recovery? I mean, it sounds like we're just starving the muscles of blood.
While you are in the cold water, you are.
Okay.
But the magic of cold water immersion isn't just the constriction while you're in there, it's the mechanical force of that constriction.
Like squeezing a sponge.
Yes. As this blood is pushed forcefully out of the limbs, it acts like a tidal wave. It physically carries away those stagnant metabolic waste products, the hydrogen ions, the reactive oxygen species, pushing them out of the localized muscle tissue.
And back into the central circulatory system.
Exactly, where your liver and kidneys can actually process them.
See, here's where it gets really interesting to me. It's not just about what happens when you're shivering in the water. It's about the rush that happens the second you get out.
The vasodilation.
Yeah, the text describes this massive vasodilation.
Right. The moment you step out of the cold, the threat of hypothermia passes. So your autonomic nervous system stops pumping norepinephrine.
And the vessels just open back up.
They relax and expand widely, and they do it very suddenly.
It's like a high-pressure citywide vacuum system. The cold water squeezes the roads tight, clearing out all the broken-down vehicles and trash, pushing it all back to the central processing plants of the city.
Yep.
And then you step out of the cold, the roads open up wider than before, and this massive fleet of fresh supply trucks carrying highly oxygenated, nutrient-dense blood just seamlessly floods back into those depleted neighborhoods.
That is a perfect analogy. And that vascular pumping action drastically reduces the duration of your muscular soreness. Yep. It is a highly efficient mechanical flush of your system.
You're manually overriding the slow, passive recovery process.
Exactly.
But hold on. If you are listening to this on your way home from the gym right now, this is where we have to address that massive contradiction I brought up at the start of the deep dive.
The ice bath trend.
Yeah. If this cold water immersion is a giant biological reset button, my instinct is to jump into an ice bath the absolute second I drop the heavy weights. We see it everywhere online. Lift heavy, immediately hit the ice.
Right, because you would naturally assume that faster recovery equals better results.
Makes sense intuitively.
But the clinical data shows the exact opposite for people trying to build muscle.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. If your primary goal is muscular hypertrophy, meaning the actual growth of muscle tissue and strength using cold water immediately after lifting heavy weights is profoundly counterproductive.
So doing it right after a heavy lift is actively hurting your gains?
It is. Remember when we established that the localized inflammation you create during heavy resistance training is the exact biological signal your body needs to build new muscle?
Right. The cytokines and the cellular stress, they're the molecular blueprints for growth.
Exactly. The construction crews needing to see the damage so they know where to rebuild.
Okay, so if I jump in the ice.
If you use cold water immersion immediately after lifting heavy weights, you forcefully blunt that inflammatory signal before it even has a chance to fully register.
You wash it away.
You essentially wash away the chemical messengers.
Yeah.
You shut down the construction site before the workers have even clocked in.
Oh, wow. So you might feel less sore the next day, sure. But you've completely short-circuited the entire biological reason you went to the gym in the first place.
Precisely. You've traded long-term muscular adaptation for short-term comfort. Cold water is a surgical tool, not a blunt instrument.
It must be applied with extreme precision.
Yes.
So if cold water is this surgical tool that can completely backfire if we use it incorrectly, how do we actually wield it? I mean, the source provides these incredibly practical behavioral protocols.
Right.
Let's start with the dosage,
Good place to start.
because I think a lot of people are intimidated by the idea of sitting in freezing water for 20 minutes.
Well, the good news is the clinical threshold is surprisingly accessible. We refer to this as the minimum effective dose.
Okay.
You do not need to endure freezing, agonizing temperatures for long periods of time to see significant physiological benefits. The scientific literature points to a target of just 11 total minutes per week.
Wait, 11 minutes a week? That's almost nothing.
It really is.
You could break that up into just a few minutes a day.
And you definitely should break it up into multiple short sessions. Furthermore, the temperature doesn't need to be freezing.
Really?
Yeah, the data shows maximum vascular response at a target temperature between 50 and 59 degrees Fahrenheit.
Which is roughly 10 to 15 degrees Celsius.
Exactly.
Okay, 50 to 59 degrees. I mean, that's basically just a cold shower or a standard unheated pool in the early spring.
Yep.
So you submerge yourself up to your neck for just 2 to 3 minutes per session, and that's enough.
It is more than enough. That precise temperature and duration trigger the necessary release of norepinephrine, forcing the vasoconstriction and metabolic flushing.
But without the danger.
Exactly. Crucially, it avoids causing dangerous thermal stress to your cardiovascular system. We aren't trying to induce hypothermia here.
Right, we're just trying to pull biological lever.
Precisely.
Okay, so 11 minutes a week is shockingly doable. Yeah. But surely I can't just jump in whenever it's convenient, right? If this is actually precision medicine, the timing has to be just as strict as the temperature.
Oh, absolutely. Timing dictates the entire biological outcome. Let's break it down by your specific training goals.
Okay.
If you are performing heavy resistance training, lifting weights to build muscle size and strength, you absolutely must wait a minimum of 4 to 6 hours after your workout before entering the cold water.
Because that 4 to 6 hour window is when the inflammation is doing its heavy lifting.
Yes. The cellular signaling cascade peaks during those hours. You have to allow the necessary inflammatory signaling to occur so your muscles can adapt and grow.
Right.
And then later in the day, you use the cold water to flush the lingering metabolic waste that is no longer serving a purpose.
Okay, but what if my goal isn't necessarily getting bigger biceps? What if I'm, say, training for a marathon, or I just played a grueling game of basketball and I have another game tomorrow?
Then the protocol flips entirely.
Really?
Yeah. If you are performing high-intensity cardiovascular conditioning, endurance training, or participating in a multi-day athletic competition, immediate immersion is ideal.
Oh, because in those scenarios, you don't care about building muscle mass in that specific moment. You just care about clearing the gridlock so your legs are fresh.
Exactly. You want to clear that metabolic waste instantly. You are prioritizing rapid systemic recovery over muscular hypertrophy. The goal is restoring function, not building mass.
Wow. It really is like precision medicine. You don't just randomly pop a pill whenever you feel like it. You administer the exact dose at the exact temperature, exactly when the biological window opens for the specific result you're trying to achieve.
It really puts the control back in your hands.
It does. Now, we know how to get in, and we know exactly when to get in based on our goals. But the source text emphasizes something that honestly caught me completely off guard.
The rewarming.
Yeah, it claims that what happens after you get out of the cold water is where the real metabolic magic happens.
This is perhaps the most fascinating and definitely the most uncomfortable part of the process. It's called the natural rewarming protocol. When you exit the cold water, your immediate, overwhelming instinct will be to jump into a hot shower or wrap yourself up in heavy heated blankets.
Of course.
But the clinical protocol demands that you resist this urge.
You have to let your body rewarm naturally in room temperature air. I have to admit, reading this part filled me with sheer horror.
It is not fun.
I hate being cold. Is standing around shivering in a room temperature room actually worth the absolute misery? It sounds awful.
It is decidedly uncomfortable, I won't lie. But the physiological payoff is massive.
Okay, why?
It all comes down to the science of the shiver. When you allow yourself to shiver naturally, you are activating a highly specialized tissue in your body called brown adipose tissue.
Commonly known as brown fat.
Great.
Okay, let's pause here because I think most of us just think of fat as the stuff we want to burn off on the treadmill. What makes brown fat so special?
Well, we typically think of as white fat. And white fat is essentially just dormant energy storage. Brown fat is entirely different. It gets its dark color because it is exceptionally dense in mitochondria.
The powerhouses of our cells.
Exactly. So unlike white fat, brown fat is metabolically active tissue.
And the shivering is the trigger that turns it on.
Yes. The physical muscle contractions of shivering signal the brown fat to activate a specific protein. It's called uncoupling protein 1, or UCP1.
UCP1, got it.
Normally, mitochondria generate ATP for cellular energy, but UCP1 short-circuits that process. It forces the mitochondria to pull systemic blood glucose sugar in your blood and burn it rapidly to generate pure, radiating heat from the inside out.
Wait, so instead of using the sugar in my blood to power movement, the brown fat just incinerates it to turn me into a human radiator.
That is a very accurate way to describe it. You literally become your own furnace.
That's incredible.
And the systemic payoff for doing this is staggering. By forcing your body to act as its own furnace, you profoundly improve your baseline metabolic health.
Because you're burning through the sugar.
Right. You are rapidly burning through circulating blood glucose, which massively increases your insulin sensitivity.
Which is a huge deal. I mean, for preventing metabolic diseases and just maintaining steady energy levels throughout the day.
Exactly. When you burn through systemic blood glucose just to stay warm, your body becomes incredibly efficient at clearing sugar from your bloodstream. You are compounding all the vascular benefits of the initial cold exposure with a profound metabolic upgrade.
So shivering isn't just a miserable side effect of being cold. It's the literal sound of your metabolic engine turning on.
That's a great way to put it.
That completely reframes the discomfort for me. If I'm shivering, I'm burning systemic glucose.
Exactly. You are actively improving your metabolic health.
Amazing. Now, to help lock all this complex biology in, the source provides a sort of clinical lightning round, like a mandatory vocabulary tour.
Yes, the 5 terms.
Right. But rather than just reading definitions like a dictionary, let's play a quick game with these 5 terms. I'll throw out the clinical word, and let's contextualize it with the exact protocols we just outlined, making sure we hit the phonetics and context sentences exactly as the text provided.
I think that's a great exercise. The language we use really shapes our understanding of the mechanisms.
Okay, first word, muscle, spelled M-U-S-C-L-E, pronounced musul. We know it's fibrous tissue that contracts, but how does the text frame it for us today?
In our context, muscle is the site of the microtrauma. It's the physical tissue that requires adequate protein and careful management of the inflammation window.
Right.
And the text specifically notes using it in the context of consuming protein to rebuild those exact fibers.
Which leads perfectly to the second term, recover. Spelled R-E-C-O-V-E-R, pronounced recover.
Right.
We tend to think of recovery as just lounging on the couch watching TV, but the text defines it as returning to a normal state of health. It's an active process.
It is highly active. And the source emphasizes that it's not just about repairing local muscle tissue, it's systemic. The context sentence they use is about sleep architecture for nervous system recovery.
Sleep architecture.
Yeah.
Right. So if you don't prioritize that alongside these cold protocols, your central nervous system will never fully recover from the stress.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, systemic recovery. That brings up the third term, vessel, spelled V-E-S-S-E-L, pronounced Vsul, specifically a tube containing circulated body fluid. This is the absolute bedrock of the cold plunge, right?
That's right. The context here is that extreme cold causes every blood vessel in your extremities to shrink, forcing blood back toward your vital organs.
That vasoconstriction.
Yes, that is the mechanical driver of the entire protocol.
And the reason we care about those vessels shrinking is term number 4, circulate, spelled C-I-R-C-U-L-A-T-E, pronounced circulate, moving freely through a closed system.
Which is exactly what the vasodilation achieves when you step out of the cold. You rapidly circulate fresh, oxygenated blood to flush out the metabolic waste.
And the context sentence in the text mentions light walking on rest days to circulate oxygen, right?
Yes. Even on rest days, engaging in light movement helps circulate oxygen to tired limbs.
Okay, and the final lever controlling all of this. Term number 5, temperature, spelled T-E-M-P-E-R-A-T-U-R-E, pronounced temperature, degree of heat.
Right.
We use the 50 to 59 degree water to manipulate the vessels, but the text also notes that temperature is a broader tool.
It is. The context sentence they give is lowering ambient bedroom temperature for restorative sleep. It highlights a beautiful recurring theme here.
What's that?
Circulation, temperature, and recovery are all deeply interconnected mechanisms. You cannot manipulate one without profoundly impacting the others.
Man, that is so true.
Yeah.
So bringing this all together, what is our overarching thesis here?
Wow.
By strategically introducing these brief, intense periods of cold exposure, just 11 minutes a week at around 55 degrees, you are actively training your vascular system to act efficiently. You are utilizing the ultimate citywide vacuum to clear out the biochemical debris of yesterday so you can perform optimally today.
And if we look at the broader implications, it really reminds us that you hold the remote control to your own physiology.
I love that.
These protocols, the minimum effective dose, the strategic 4 to 6 hour timing for muscle growth, the natural rewarming through shivering, these aren't obscure biological hacks reserved for elite athletes with multi-million-dollar training facilities.
Right. They're for everyone.
They're fundamental levers of human biology. They are available to absolutely anyone with a cold shower or a bathtub. You aren't just passively waiting to recover. You are actively engineering a more resilient physical baseline.
Engineering resilience. It completely shifts how I view taking a cold shower. But, looking at all this science, it leaves me with one final, slightly provocative thought to chew on. Yeah. We've just spent all this time establishing that the brief, intense stress of cold water and the sheer discomfort of shivering are profoundly necessary to activate our brown fat and build metabolic resilience.
Absolutely.
So what happens to a modern human body that spends its entire life perfectly climate-controlled at a cozy 72 degrees, moving from a heated house to a heated car to a heated office? Are our modern comforts actually biologically starving us of the very stress signals we need to thrive?